So even though we're not in a buyer's market, that's pretty substantial, because I think some of it comes to we're not pricing correctly. And the other part goes to, yes, Jason. The technical definition to make it a buyer's market is if inventory is 7 months plus. And I'm not going to tell you what inventory is right now because it's part of the game at the end, but we are not 7 months plus. Balanced is 6 months. Seller's market is anything below that. The last couple months, we've had a white hot seller's market where inventory was less than 2 months at any given time. So then we're going to talk about managing your listings in a market. So that is, what do you talk to your seller when average time on market's drastically longer? How do you keep them motivated and not firing you and hiring someone else? And then the last one is studying your market, but I made it a game, so it'll be fun because I know this is probably the least fun part of this job. I love it. So that's probably why I'm teaching the class. So let's jump right into getting to the right price. So the market has changed. The blue line is homes that have sold. The red line is active homes daily. And the fun thing, maybe, is right there. We have more homes selling back in March and April than homes listed. Do you know how that happened? Anyone? Think about what would sell but not get listed on the market. New construction, yes. So we had a lot of new construction closing that wasn't showing up. And now with the active listings, we are seeing a lot more new construction on the market. So of the 9,600 they talked about 25% of that is new construction. So that is some of our jump, but not all of it. And as you can see, under contracts are going down. So market has changed. We can't say the market is changing. The market has officially changed. Yes. So I do it both ways. So I'll pull it both, but most of it's just the to be built under construction. Because I don't think a lot of builders are listing their currently being built, or flip that. They're listing the ones they're currently building, not what's coming in their pipeline. Good question. So the real part of pricing your listing is pricing it right out the gate. Because if you do not, you end up with way longer time on market. If you have a price reduction, it ups your time on market by 2 to 3 times the average. And if you're talking to your client that much more, they're not happy with you and you're not getting the repeat and referral business because you're not executing to the level they expected. And part of that is in your consultation is having the conversation of the market has changed. So their expectations are correct with the market, not with what the news has been saying. And the news has also been saying doom and gloom, which when we get to the stats, will actually show it's not as bad as it appears. So the best way to get your seller to the right price is to help them self-discover the pricing. So what you can do is take the comparables to your client and say, if you were a buyer in this market, would you buy your house for the price they're thinking? Because then they're really getting into it. They're like, well, they have a backyard, their basement's finished, different aspects like that. And you can do that with the CMA, Cloud CMA, because it'll show the pictures on the CMA so they can get a good idea. Yes.
Are you going to get into the adjusted values? I know I listened to a
yes.
webinar a few weeks ago, and they would give the adjusted values.
We're not going to talk about what a bedroom's worth in one versus the other, because that is probably the most complicated part of your job, and there's no straightforward answer to it. Right. Because pricing a house is art and science.
Well, what they had said is that it's up to the broker to come up with it.
Yes, if you took the CMA pricing class, I took it as well. And it was very interesting because how they marketed it made it sound like it was going to say, we're going to give you the answer to XYZ, but there is no true answer. So appraisers have a formula and buyers have stuff in mind. And your job as a listing agent is to put those together and come up with the value. And that's really where your skill comes into it. And we'll talk about once you come up with the price, and well, we'll talk about it. I won't give you dollar amounts though. Okay, so what Angie just said is the MLS is coming to teach the pricing class. So they'll get more in depth on the actual pricing on it. Yes. Yes, I believe it is. Is it 2? 2-hour CE on how to price houses. Cool. Thank you, Angie. So this is a big piece of how to price your house. So this is called the tale of two markets. There's the seller's market and the buyer's market. So in a seller's market, which we have been in for the last very long time, your pricing, you have a lot of options. So you have price versus comps and you have condition versus comps. So you can price your house at the high end of comps, at the low end of comps, based off of factors like your seller's motivation, timeline, how much inventory is on the market, things like that, and based off condition. So think about things that have sold recently, like some of the garbage that has sold. You're not going to get away with that anymore. You're going to have to improve your condition to get your house sold, because getting out of the market was actually really hard the last few years. So you could take your comparables, you could say, okay, this house is worth 450 to 500. I'm going to price it for 5, maybe 519, and you could get away with that. Now we're looking at your house is worth 450 to 500. Maybe I need to be at 450 or maybe even 445, 5,000 below. So when you're looking at your comps, you actually need to be lower. And the comps you're using right now need to be the last 60 days. Any comp that you use in March, April is not a valid comp for the market that we're currently in. Yes.
You better go out, like you said, the last 60 days. You better go out like 30 to 60 days within that mile radius, or widen your radius 5 miles.
I would do both. So if you cannot get enough comparables in the last 60 days, I would go further out, but make sure you're not messing with the geographic differences. Like there's some areas where it's way more valuable to be on the east side than the west side. And I would never go on the west side as a comp. I would go further back in time before I went. And what I have done is I've actually skipped January to April, and I've used November, December, and I'll show you where you can see what the average price point was for that area at that price at that time. And there is a time adjustment needed for it, and I'll show you how to do that. Should I do it right now? Because if not, I will forget to tell you. So, oh my gosh, work. Oh, escape. There we go. Handy dandy MLS. So you go to statistics and you go to sales per month. And then I have to look at the screen, sorry. So we'll make it simple. We'll do Utah County. Oh, go away. And then this will pull back to, and then we'll do single family as well. And I'll get rid of new construction. So how you get rid of new construction, because that is different, is you can come and do built standing. That'll get rid of all your new construction. Or if you want to sort, you can do under construction or to be built. I find to be built tends to be more of a luxury product. So if you're looking at a product and that's what you're pricing, that's the direction to go. So then you can view the results. And this is a lot of data for it to pull, so it takes a minute. And it will tell you the median list price to the original sales price for the last forever. Never use the last month of data because it's not a full month of data. And if the contracts are being written in the buyer's favor, most contracts close at the end of the month because it saves buyers money. So if you go back to December, November, because if you remember, December, November was very much like this. Like we weren't crazy busy. You didn't have to drop everything to see a house. Average time on market was 13 days compared to the last couple months, 5-6 days. So that kind of shows you what that market felt like. Because last month we can see it was 17 days, which again, I'll show you a better way to look at average time on market. But you can see that in the median sales price for a single family home built standing in Utah County was 505 in December. And then we got up to 579 was the peak in May. And now we're going backwards. So so that's why I wouldn't use these comparables when I'm comping a house, because that was a different market, 5 days on market versus 17 days on market. But the time adjustment that you need to make is if the average went from 500 and now 545, that's roughly the price adjustment that you're going to be able to get on average for your house. So I'm not saying take a $600,000 house and put 45,000 on top of it, but that's the percentage. So if it would have been a $400,000 house in November, put the percentage of 45% of whatever that is. Make sense? Good, okay. Going back to the slideshow. So you have a lot more room for error. Now in a buyer's market, which again, we're not in a buyer's market, but we're preparing for you to, if we go that direction, what that looks like, you have a lot more room for error. Like you are super, like if you price it off by $5,000, you're dead. You're not getting the showings. Your seller's not interested. They're upset with you because they expected multiple showings, multiple offers, and they're not getting that. So what it is your price versus your comps need to be on the lower end of your range, and your condition versus the comps needs to be great. So this is where you're doing your paint, you're doing your carpet, you're doing the landscaping to get the house back to the best condition possible. Because if you think about it this way, last time I had a listing that had 55 buyers within the first 48 hours. That's a lot of buyers overlapping each other. Now, same price point, similar area, we ended up with 12 total in our full time on market. So if you have 55 buyers that all want your house, you have a lot more errors that you can make. But if you only have 12 buyers that are potentially interested in your house, you have to be a lot closer to grab their attention. You saying something, Brad? Oh, Brad's saying hi to people. So again, the best way in your book, you guys should be getting mailed like the companion guide to this class. In the book, if you read through it, one of the agents said they had to price below. So if their range was 450, they had to be below 450 in a buyer's market. We're not there yet, but if we head that direction, you need to be not pushing the values. So don't chase the market, whether it's going up or down. So last market was going up, you could price 10, 15, 20,000 above. This market, you might be pricing 5, 10, 15 below, or just on the lower end of comps. And time works against you. The price you're getting today, because as I showed you on the stats, we are falling, single family average. Did everyone see that? Yes, no one saw it. That price is falling. So your price for August might be the best price you get. Your price in September might be worse, and so on and so forth. What are your ahas? And I won't go to the next slide until I get 3. Sherry. Yes. So Sherry just said, for those on Zoom, actually, I guess they recorded it for Zoom later. Every time you ask yourself for a price reduction, they lose confidence in you. So pricing it right is better than price reductions. Brad, Joel.
I would say in some instances that's not correct, because the conversation that I was just having with Andrew is like, I told them their house was worth $100,000 less when I initially listed it. Now we're price reducing to the price range that I initially told you. And in some instances, I think maybe it gives them a little more confidence in the fact that, hey, you were actually right. Yeah. Then when it comes time to getting offers, they may listen to you a little more because you knew what it was going to take to get an offer and get it close. Yeah, I should have listened to you in the first place. And so I think there are some instances where people would lose confidence because you told them it was worth more, and now you're having to come back to them. But if in the instance, what Andrew's saying is he told them it was worth less money, and they thought they knew better, and the price reduction actually probably boosted their confidence.
Yeah, and that is so true. With the price reduction, if you told them that they were too high to begin with, and I did this recently with a seller, I said, this is our range, this is the price, I would price it here. And she's like, well, let's try it. And we pre-negotiated the price reduction, which we'll talk about in the next section. But that really helps build confidence if you tell them the price. Right.
Mine was going to be talking about that, stitching those two thoughts together of letting them know the market's shifting and having preset things. If we don't get this many showings, reduce. So I'm sure you'll go over that, but
Yep. Yes.
You said that 50% of homes are selling under listing price and everything. Is that because is the market changing that fast, or they're just not knowledgeable on pricing the homes?
I think it's both. So how I know that stat is a lot harder. I can't show you on the MLS because my friend Kevin has a script from the MLS that pulls all their data. And then he has a really complicated math equation that pulls it. But I think it's both. I think it's the market shifted and most of us weren't prepared. And I could see it shifting and I still wasn't entirely sure what to do because we make a big educated guess based off data when we price a house, but until it is the live subject, we don't know what's going to happen. And that's why the next section we're going to talk about is how to determine what to do based off your price will be helpful because as much as we want to be right every time, we're not always right. Josh? He's waiting for the mic. Good.
So my big aha so far was actually one of your first slides of how much the new builds have skewed the data. I think like that's such a great insight that I know I missed it, but so that's awesome.
Yeah, because builders stopped listing their inventory. So that is why our inventory got to such a low point because it really was only existing sales. Okay, next section. Managing your listings in a buyer's market. I don't like the title because it throws me off. But if your average time on market was 6 days, you were talking to your client about offers and showings, and then you're under contract. If your average time on market is 30 days, what do you talk about for 4 weeks? If it's 90 days, what do you talk about for 90 days? And this is the big thing that people need to get back in practice with is communicating with your seller weekly to make sure your seller knows what's going on in the market because they are stressed out. The study that I love to talk about to help you guys understand how stressed out they are is they've done studies and the top 3 things that are the biggest stress. Do you know what they are? The biggest stress to people in life, the top 3. Death, divorce, moving. And sometimes the first 2 cause the third one. So that's the type of advice you're giving people is it's up there with death and divorce. So this is a big deal. You do it every day. You're in it every day. So it might not feel as important, but statistically people move every 10 years. So they haven't done it in a while. So they need your guidance and they need to know you're talking to them. I view your client asking you for an update as a failure in your system and your process because you should have had a process to give them that update before. So what we do is every Tuesday, I give them a marketing update and I do Tuesday because Monday feels like I'm just fighting fires all day. But on Tuesday, I can sit down and I can say, this is what has happened with your house. So you can arm, you can arm with what's happened on the MLS, how many homes have been listed, how many have sold, how many went pending, how many had price reductions. This is really helpful to preemptively get those price reductions because you're not asking for it at this point because you shouldn't ask for it. Well, the next slide will tell you when to ask for it. But this gives them a good snapshot of the market and what's going on. And then I can't see that part. So this one's really big. How many websites their house is on, how many views they're getting. So we actually use the stats off the MLS. I'll show you where it is. For those of you who don't know, oh, go away. I'm not, does that move? How do I move the bar? That.
And then hide video.
That? Yay, thank you. Okay, so how you can have, and I send this to my sellers every week. Why are you not moving? I'm not a Mac user, sorry. So you go to your listings and you have this cool little view report and you can click on that and you can say there's been 20,000 views on your home. And break it down. It's been favorited 8 times. This is how many agents have sent it to their clients. And a bulk of the views are just people playing on the MLS because it pops up as a map search result. But can a for sale by owner get 20,000 views on their listing? Probably not. So that's a big value piece that you bring is you're bringing eyeballs to their property. And then the next week I might show them, if you Google their address, how many websites it shows up on. And then the next week we talk about what's happened. Well, we always talk about what's happened with showings, but that just gives you something to tell your client every single week. Yes.
That's the MLS views,
Mhm.
whether it's on the app or the website, people actually clicked on the property, check it,
Some of them
confirms a
are.
view.
Yeah, so the 20,000 is impressions. So like if their house shows up on a map view. And the first week you usually get about 3,000 to 4,000 in the opening week. And then after that, 3,000 continuing on. And I've noticed with the last couple listings I've had, most go under contract about 20,000 views, which I thought was interesting for the last 3 data points I have, four. So I was like, oh, maybe that's a thing. So if you can get your 20,000 views faster, that might help your client go under contract sooner.
Maybe
Yes.
you have 20,000 on MLS, you have 40,000 on Zillow.
Yeah.
I mean, are people monitoring that? A lot of our clients are looking at Zillow. How many views do I have on Zillow?
Yeah, I personally don't track Zillow, so I don't actually know, and I don't send that to my client to tell them. Maybe I should, but I just send them what I'm doing. Yes, Andrew?
If you pull up list track, you can see, if you pull up list track, it'll pull that up and
Cool.
give you those numbers automatically. So if you're on the front page of the MLS, just on the left-hand side, go to list track on the left.
We're
Pull
all
it
gonna
up.
learn something new. Thank you,
So
Andrew.
excited.
And then it'll show you a heat map of where your buyers are coming from that your seller will like to see.
Sweet.
Yeah. That's right in culture. Good job.
Really?
So-
I know, I've never played with this one before.
So if you're in your own
Yeah. I'm
profile,
in
you'll pull up any of your listings, just pull up one specific one, and then it'll give you the Zillow, Utah real estate, usually like homes.com, and then IDX feeds.
As it thinks about it. Don't show them this one, but Zillow has way more than I do.
I was just gonna say.
Zillow will always have more on every home that you have that'll
Yeah.
show up.
That's what I find is that they'll have 4 to 5 times as many saves or favorites on Zillow than I will on Utah real estate.
Which one do
So-
you click? The green one or the blue one? Green? So what that looks like? No, I don't want to do that. Oh, that one?
You can email out this report, but usually.
Do what? I don't know what I'm doing. All right, so we're gonna play with this and learn more about it. So is it because they're all pending that it's not pulling up cool stuff? Maybe one of the active? I mean, they're building lots, so they're not terribly exciting, but.
So this will pull up, some of your views based on your Zillow, your UtahRealEstate.com. It'll show your visitors, how many people are coming. So if they're saying, are people looking at my home or not? This will let them know you got a lot in the beginning. If they had a price change, they get a bunch again. If they are dying off, just visually, it helps them see what kind of action they're getting on their home.
Nothing on IDX.
You got the heat map here. With this one, you can see Utah, San Francisco area. You've got Las Vegas, maybe somewhere around Dallas.
We got Hawaii on there.
We got New
Sweet.
York. So it's nice for them to see is if you're going to do any retargeting, whether it be through Google or Facebook, you can retarget to those specific areas.
That's cool.
Gives you some other data if you have it on that particular home. But I think that heat map, the number of views that they're getting based off of, you see Zillow has a lot more than the others. And then it gives you this little breakdown, but you can email something out. I usually clip what I want to have sent out and send it rather than having the whole thing go.
Yeah.
But if you want to know how many Zillow has there, that's an easy place to get it.
There you go. Learn something new today. Thank you. Okay, so now you have even more information on how to talk with your clients. And then the big one at the bottom is let them talk and listen because they're frustrated. It's not going how they expected. So letting them vent to you is better than letting them vent to their friends and family, because if they're going to vent there, you're not going to get those repeat and referral. So how to get your price reductions, or how to know if you need the price reductions. So this stat comes from the National Association of Realtors. I've heard it a billion times, but I never knew where it actually came from. So I'm excited to see that. But if you have 10 to 12 showings and no comments, that's a 5% price reduction. 10 to 12 showings, no offers, 5%, no showings, 10%. And keep in mind, at a $500,000 purchase price, that is $50,000. So this is a big conversation. So you don't want to be off by that much. And the big one that I thought was really cool is 2 to 3 weeks with no showings equals a price reduction. So I know that we've had 55 showings opening weekend. And now if we get 4 to 5 showings, we're panicking a little bit. You're okay. You're still getting showings. You don't need to go drop your price after a weekend of no showings. And then 10 showings with no offers equals price reduction. So if you have that conversation with your client up front and say, hey, the market's changing, we're making an educated guess based off of data, but the market's going to tell us where we're at. Yes, Brad?
I would use this now, look at that. I would say like at least the 5% or at least the 10%. So it leaves you some flexibility to have the conversation.
And say, you said 5, well, I said at least 5, and the market shifted. So here's the stats. It's actually gonna be probably closer to 7, but instead of holding it to where they think it's only going to be exactly 5, I would just kind of leave yourself some wiggle room in there for negotiation with your client if the market has shifted, or just different things that way to give yourself some room.
Yes, I like that. And that actually talks about that second piece, which is getting to the next bracket. Because if a 5% price reduction reduces you from, I can't do math in my head, but if it doesn't get you in the next bracket, it's kind of a waste of the price reduction. And what I mean by brackets is buyers shop in the 10,000 range, the 50,000 range. At $1 million, they shop at $100,000 price range. So you might only need to do your price reduction by $10,000 to get you to that next lower bracket. It's not necessary, which gets you that next buyer pool. So I like to list my listings on even numbers because you get the double buyer pool. So if you're at 500, you get the 450 to 5, you get the 5 to 550. But if you're not getting the showings, you might need to go down to that next bracket, which would be the 495, 489 price point. And then you get into the mentality of ending with a 9 because it looks like a good deal, stuff like that. But getting to that next bracket also helps. So you don't have to do the flat, like Brad said. Give yourself wiggle room, because maybe that 5% plus will get you to the next bracket. Yes, Brad.
So something you said that
Got missed is when you are pricing, don't be afraid to price at $500,000 even. So you get people that are 450 to 500 and 5 to 550, like you're talking about,
Mhm.
but also like 4 1/4. Don't do 429.9. Do, or
Yeah.
449.9. Like just get it at that even amount, because that's a lot of wisdom right there. I think you can definitely pick up a lot of people that they're just not looking at it because you're $100 off the price that they're looking at, and the auto searches aren't pulling it up.
Yeah. And as you know, when you work with buyers, they really don't shop too much higher than their budget because they've been trained that they can't get that house. So they try to stick within their budget to give them the ability to get a house. So the pricing, and people still price with the 9s all the time. Like I pulled a stat against 999 versus $1 million, and the amount of people who were pricing at 999 was surprising. But if you price right at $1 million, you're getting the buyers who can take that house, renovate the house, make it better because they have extra budgets, where 999 might be their absolute max. And now you've missed out on this huge buyer pool. Yes.
Does this change? Market changes like is this kind of like a standard?
So this is a standard, and it comes from the teaching material in this. And this whole series is based off of the book Shift. Have you read the book Shift? No, yes, 4 people, good job. The whole series based off of that. So they went and took that, built more information, and got it from here. That is a really good question. So keeping your carrying costs low. So a conversation I had with Peter Morkel yesterday is he stages his listings that are vacant, and it's been put it on the market, get under contract, get the staging out of there. But now average time on market creeping up, he's getting additional holding costs for keeping the staging inventory in his property. So we personally own our own staging because we don't hold as many listings as Peter does. So then we can strategically remove our staging from one house to the next and keeps our holding costs lower than paying to rent the staging furniture. And there's a lot of different areas in your business that you can keep your holding costs low. You can pay, which Brad will talk about this next week, but you can pay on bonuses versus a higher base salary. There's a lot of options to keep your costs lower because you will have listings cancel, which is a new phenomenon that people haven't experienced in the last couple of years, that everything sells. But if you're going to spend $5,000 to get your listing sold with all the staging and they cancel and you don't have a plan in place, you don't have a cancellation cost to your seller, or you don't have a backup, you might end up less profitable than you have been. And keep your language positive. So when you talk about price reductions, maybe talk about price adjustments, because there's a negative connotation when you say reduction. Anything like that, because you're kind of the realtors are mostly optimistic, not everyone, but most. And that's kind of what you're there for, is to help keep them in a spot that they feel good, but then also know when to call it quits, because there might be a point that your seller is not realistic and it is not going to sell. And your mind power, even though it's just your mind, is $1 per hour cost. And if you are giving them your emotions and your feelings, and every time you have to call them, you're dreading that phone call, maybe it's worth it to let them go. I remember back in the day that you wanted to be the third listing agent because that's when you finally got the house sold. So that's why prospecting expires was great back then, because if they really had to sell, that would get you there. And then offering seller concessions. I'm not going to go super in depth on this because there's another class on it, but talk to your lenders, find out what the best, we all know the 2-1 buy down. We all know about covering closing costs, but no more in depth, like what can be covered. Can prepaids be covered? Can you do an extended home warranty? What can you do to really attract the buyers to your property? And when you're having your listing consultation, instead of saying, oh, it's going to cost you 5% to sell your house, if you're paying 3% in seller closing costs, prepare your seller for that potential. And you can look at the market to see, based off their neighborhood, who's paying closing costs, who's not, and what percentages they are, just when you're doing your CMA search. But talk to your lenders. What ahas do you have from that section?
I have a question.
Yes.
For Peter, maybe for you.
It's because I'm a newbie on selling existing real estate.
Must be nice.
When you furnish, do you ever have your clients pay for it? Like, hey, you're moving out, we're going to list your home, we can get it furnished for, or staged, whatever, for $500 or $800. Do you have your clients ever pay for that up front and then rebate it on the commission at the end? That way, if your carrying costs are longer, it's, hey, this is how much it's going to cost you if it takes longer for your home to sell, to where you can kind of shift that to them. I'm just curious on what you guys do.
I have in the past, like I've had, like, I'll pay for the first month and then you pay for the months extending. That is a great way to keep your carrying costs low, because then it keeps your seller motivated. And there's also staging companies that you can pay for the upfront and then the rental can be paid at closing. So then the same thing, like it's not money out of their pocket, but it also keeps your costs low. Peter?
Yeah, we're having that conversation right now, because traditionally we just paid for the staging. And so we're saying, okay, well, if there's subsequent months, do we charge that to the client? What's the conversation,
Yeah.
Because we went away from having our own staging furniture just because the logistics were just,
Yeah, it definitely
too
takes
much.
more time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's hours spent staging. Yeah. Other ahas before we move on? Yes, Jordan. Okay, bringing you the mic.
Yeah, so if somebody's looking to sell, but they have their home listed and it's obviously the price is not where it should be at this point, but they're not in a rush to sell right now, like, would it be smart to take it off the market for 3 months and then relist it at that point? Or do you think it's wiser to just reduce the price more dramatically right now?
Well, if we go back to the stats of sales per month, we know that prices are dropping. And we also know we're getting into the seasonal timeframe of fall, where fewer people list, but the buyers tend to be more motivated in the fall. Because if you're buying in the snow, there's a reason you're buying in the snow. So it's a hard one to answer because that could change tomorrow. The Fed could come out and say, hey, we're dropping the rate we're lending money. Interest rates drop back to 3, the market explodes again. So and this is where the art of your job comes in, because it's based off of this one person and their one situation. Coming into the fall market, it's going to slow down anyways, but I'm going to show the whole market, because the whole, if you saw my video on the Changing Market Facebook page, are you on it yet? Have you signed up? Maybe. You should, because that's where we're having the conversation of more specific, like this is what's happening, what should I do? But when I pulled up the stats yesterday, the median sales price max for everything in Utah was 540, and we are down to 505, which is a 7% price reduction. So if we continue that trend, and it's 3 months, so three data points allows for it to be a trend. So that means we potentially are headed that direction. So if you take it off the market and reset and list it in 3 months, which does that put us into January?
No.
November. No, I would never purposely list house in November. Sorry. But if we follow that trend, he could make less. So it might make more sense, like the one quote said, to do the price reduction and get it sold now.
Yeah.
But then you go back to reassessing, why are they selling? Do they really have to sell? Because really you want only sellers who have to sell in a market like this. And we're not there yet. Like, it feels weird to teach this class because we're not at the desperate, only the motivated are selling. We still have enough. Average time on market's still healthy. Interest rates are still healthy. The economy is still good, but we are trending that direction.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to give input? Joel, got Mike already.
I would say, sometimes different markets take different tactics. So 6 months ago, I never would have suggested this because it'd be a waste of time. But if you want to motivate your seller who seems stagnant about not wanting to do price reductions, go show them a couple houses that they may fall in love with, and that price that they said they would never go to sell may change, because they may fall in love with a house and say, hey, you know what, we really need to get this house sold to buy this one. And I'm seeing more contingent offers be accepted right now. So could be a tactic just to get them off center, to get them more motivated by seeing something. The other thing would be is maybe show them through some of their competition, take them to a couple houses that are priced in their price range and show them, hey, your house really isn't this house. And so you need to price reduce. This house is not selling at this price and it's nicer than yours. It's sometimes people need a reality check.
So if Joel's showing your house, no, he's probably not selling it to a buyer. Peter has one more, and then we're going to move on to the game, and I'll need 3 volunteers.
Yeah, making them aware of the local market, like right around their home. I actually had a really, I guess you could say, positive experience with a seller recently, because right as we were going to list, someone else listed in the same neighborhood. And I said to them, we just have to be more, because if the homes are virtually identical, equivalent lot size, equivalent level of finish. I said, they're our competition, because anyone who's looking at our house is looking at their home, and we just have to be priced better than them. And every time those people lowered their price, my seller would call me. It's like, oh, we need to lower the price. And they basically did my work for me.
Nice.
And we're under contract and they're not. So that worked. That was a very effective strategy.
Okay, but
Talk about how you have let other agents do the dirty work for you.
oh, okay. So another way to get your client to the point they want to do their price reductions is getting agent feedback from your showings. So then, and be like, if you show my house, give me honest feedback. If it's terrible and disgusting, like, I'm totally cool knowing that. And I tell my client directly, because I probably already told my client, but sometimes having 5 other people that they don't know tell them they trust more, I don't know. But give feedback in this market moving forward. Working with other agents is very valuable, but giving the feedback of this house isn't as nice. My last one, they're like, it's a nice home, but everything else like yours has granite, has quartz, has the things that in the grand scheme we know don't cost that much money. But to a buyer, they're like, well, if all things are equal, I'm going to buy this house. That stuff is very helpful for your client. And then you also know, because when you're playing this game, you can improve condition or you can adjust price. That's about it. You can, like, we're assuming you're doing fantastic marketing. So condition or price. So maybe the conversation is, it is worth it to just replace the carpet, keep the price the same. And that's where agent feedback is very helpful to get your client to understand what the buyers want in this market. Now we're going to go to the game because we're running out of time. Who feel like they know the MLS and the economy really well, because this subject is called Know Your Market. Come on, 3 people. We're playing Jeopardy. You're going to be embarrassed in front of everyone if you don't know the answers. Yeah? Got 1. Come stand by the bells. 2 more. It's only 8 questions. And you'll notice commission amount is what you're making. It's not $100, because knowing this information will make a difference in your job. All right, Peter. No, you can't. You actually know the questions. That's right. 2
Sure,
more.
you're gonna go up. Oh, you got it. I'll do it. I'm going up.
Thank you, Sherry. Okay, 1 more. Yeah, Sean's gonna do it. It'll be great. Okay, so for everyone who's playing, oh, Amber, no, Amber, come up. Take Sean's spot. I love it. All right. So, yes, they'll need mics. There's one by Brady if you want to give them all their own mic. Thank you for volunteering. I thought I'd make this a game because it's
You're welcome. Could I
stats.
say something just real quick?
Yes.
I'm new to this office, a couple of weeks, but I follow the stock market every day as a trader. So
Nice.
that's why I thought
Felt
I
comfortable.
felt
Good.
compelled to come up.
Oh boy.
Pressure's on.
Doesn't mean I'm a genius.
You'll do great. Okay. Well, since you volunteered first, what was your name?
Aaron,
Aaron. All right. Since Aaron volunteered first, he gets to go first. So we have MLS data and the economy. Which subject do you want and what price? Aaron,
about the economy.
economy for 5,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready, ladies? What is the definition of a recession? Amber.
Trending down.
Negative GDP.
I thought it was 2 months.
It's actually 2 quarters of negative
Quarters, that's what
GDP.
it was. 2 quarters.
2 quarters. Have we had 2 quarters of a negative GDP?
Yes.
Yes, we have, which is gross domestic import, which is how much money everyone's spending. We've had 2 negative quarters, but we've had 5. Anyway, I won't go into details. Okay, next. Amber, since you rang the bell.
I'll do MLS data for 5,000.
MLS data for 5,000. How many active homes are on the market as of this morning?
Oh, I'm gonna guesstimate 9650.
Super close. It's when I looked at it at 10:30, it was 9660.
Oh, that's close enough, isn't it?
I agree.
That's close enough.
Yes, it fluctuates. Okay, Sherry, you get to pick.
Let's do MLS data for 10.
MLS data for 10. What is the average time on market?
37 days.
No. Anyone else?
30.
Close.
27.
Oh, Amber got it. And I'm going to show you how to look it up because everyone does this stat wrong. And if I see it in your marketing, I will know you did it wrong. So the MLS tells you, based on that cute little marketing report at the end of every month, that tells you what the closed average time on market is, which is great. But closed average time on market could have been homes that have been under contract for 60 days. That's not helping your information. So I showed you how to find it earlier where it was showing 17. But this little market snapshot is the best one moving forward because it tells you the rolling, like what's active, what's going under contract, and it shows you 27, where the closed is 17 average days on market. So if you set your seller up for price reductions based off 17 versus 27, you could be losing them money. And your price reductions are based off of average time on market, because that's how long it takes for the full market to be exposed to your property to say, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not interested. So good job, Amber. Okay, so Amber, you get to pick.
All right, we'll go with MLS data for 15.
MLS data for 15. How many months of inventory do we have on the whole market as a whole? Yes.
3.3.
Oh, super close.
Wow.
Said that somewhere.
Good job.
2.9.
Close.
4.5.
Nope. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do it. That's not what I wanted to do. Again, I'm going to show you guys how to do this because I feel, don't read that. Don't read it, don't read it. Because I feel like, and some of you probably already, why won't it go back? Where's my exit? On the PowerPoint first. Oh, I have to click and read that again. Oh, well, that one's fine. Can I just move? How do I move it? Okay, there we go. Sorry, everyone, technicality. Okay, so how you calculate months of inventory, which goes back to Jason's question at the very beginning, is how do you know what type of market you're in? So the MLS will do it for you on absorption report, but it's not my favorite way to do it, sorry. But I'll explain what it means. So active under contract means they take active homes and under contract, add them together, and then divide it by homes that have sold in the last 30 days. The reason I don't love that one, well, actually it's kind of both, but that one will show you that because under contract could become active at any point. Or the other option is sold versus under contract, where they add the under contract as if it's sold, and they take the active and divide it by that. So if you calculate it and view it, and I don't know if we have any parameters in here, it'll show you that we have 5 months of inventory in the last 2 months, 4 months, 4.5. So that shows we're climbing, but I feel like that's not truly accurate to the market we're in. And then if you do it with sold, it does the opposite. It'll show that we have like 2 months of inventory. So how I like to do it is the more manual way, which is where you take the active homes, which is 9,000. Oh, it's still the same. Nice. And you divide it by sold in the last 30 days. So you mark sold, and then you go down to number of days, and you divide it, or do 30. So you do the 9,660 divided by that. I did the math earlier, and it was 3.11 months of inventory. And then I also like to see where we're headed, and I like to look at the under contract. This is not a true definition of how this is done anywhere, but I think it shows you what's happening going forward, because that shows you. I don't use backup because enough agents don't use backup to weigh it one way or the other. But you could add backup, because if it's on backup status, it's under contract. It has a valid contract. But that shows you 2.7. So you can see that the under contracts are going down. More homes sold in the last 30 days than homes going under contract, which is common for the seasonality of where we're at in the season. But it kind of gives you an idea, like sellers, fewer homes are selling right now. So if we're pricing a house right now, fewer homes are selling. Back to our Jeopardy board. Okay, MLS data. Okay. Yeah.
I'll take 20,000.
20,000. Under contracts are down year over year. Do you know what percentage it is?
Just read the national stats.
This is local, and this is, I pulled it up this morning. And I'm going to show you all how to pull this up for the same, the more you know.
I would, well, if I go off the national 4.8.
4.8. We are way worse than 4.8. And this is the year over year number. So like the same day last year versus today.
So you're saying we're higher. So
We're
we're
lower.
Oh, we're lower.
There were more homes under contract last year than there are right now.
3.5.
But higher than 4.8.
Oh, way higher than 4. Yes, percentage wise, yes.
Okay, 12%.
Okay. What's your guess? Just throw a percentage out.
I'd say 15%.
15%. So when I asked Josh this question, he was like, it's like 66%. So this is actually super positive. We are only down 23%. Only. So this is, again, a good conversation to have with your clients because contracts are down, which we all, if you were in the market last 2 years, you know it was white hot, it was crazy. We can't sustain that. So it's okay to be down. And 23% is way better than 66%. The sky would be falling at 66%. And actually an interesting fact with this is when we had a bunch of cash transactions, the peak was 20% of transactions were cash, but everyone was like, everything's selling cash. Back in the recession, the most amount of bank-owned or REOs was only 20% of the sales. So everyone felt like everything was, but it only takes 20% to feel like it's everyone. So sorry, random tidbit. Okay, so now let's go to the economy since you guys all wiped out the MLS data. Did we do that one? Yes. Okay. Ready? 10,000. What is the unemployment rate? Both.
It's like so crazy low, like 3%.
Close.
Like 2.8.
Yes. Based off Google search, nationally unemployment rate is 3.5 and Utah is 2. And the reason this is important to know is when your clients are saying what's going to happen in future, well, everyone's employed who wants to be employed. So we don't foresee an issue back. And if you just Google reset or unemployment rate, you can see the graphs. Back in 2020, we hit 14% unemployment nationally, but 2020 was a great year for real estate. So the people who were unemployed were not people buying homes. Back in the recession, the peak was 10%. So we had more in 2020 than we did in the recession. And the recession was a different thing because people weren't buying. So keeping up with that helps your clients understand. Because if unemployment overnight goes to 7%, it's a different conversation. Maybe we do the huge price reduction because you're never going to get it sold. Yes. I feel like you have a question. Or were you going to say something?
That's the stated rate of unemployment.
The stated rate. Oh, there's probably
But they
more
lie a lot.
technical. I don't know that part enough. Okay, the economy 15,000. What is the Fed fund rate and why does it matter?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the Fed fund rate is what they interest rate they charge other banks, I believe.
It's the interest rate they charge
And
other banks.
why does it matter? It matters a great deal to real estate because you know, the lower the rates, the hotter the real estate market, and the higher the rates, it slows down. So
Yep. Go back. Yes, so the Fed fund rate is the rate which the bank loans or the Fed loans people money, but it's not the same as the interest rate for mortgages.
yeah,
They follow each other, but right now Fed fund rate went up 2 weeks ago and interest rates went down. So they're not the same, but because they talk about it all the time on the news, your client wants to know what it is. So right now the Fed fund rate, I believe, is 2.2% is what they're lending, and interest rate in the 4s. So they're not the same, but if you watch the things, they follow each other. And then the last one, right? We're in the last one. What is CPI and can you explain it to a 5-year-old?
well, CPI is a customer price index, and that just means an inflation index. And how would I explain it to a child? You okay? You got a let's say you have a little tangerine orange here, and just tell them that, you know, in 10 years you're going to need 2 for the same price as 1.
I like it. The reason I ask if you can explain it to a 5-year-old is sometimes your clients don't understand this. Basically, this is the fancy word for inflation. What's inflation doing? How much more expensive is something this month versus last month? And the CPI numbers actually went down this month, which is a good news. And that's why the stock market's doing as well as it is because people feel positive for the economy. It went from 9.2 to 8.5 because they track it month over month. And that is how you can help you. Thank you guys for playing. Because as we know, Gary Keller says, be the economist of choice. Just knowing what's happening in the economy and how it's going to affect your clients is how you can give the best advice. because what advice you're giving them is how they make their big financial decisions on selling or buying. So to learn more about the market, these are the upcoming classes we have. We have Shoni teaching about creating buyer urgency, bulletproofing your transaction with Clay Winder. Brad Morgan next week is teaching effective people management. Ben Nilsson is teaching short sales, foreclosures, REOs, and Joel Johnson is teaching financing solutions. What are your ahas? Any ahas before we wrap up? Did I end on time?
I was just going to share that it is on 8/24 is the CMA class. So next Wednesday, I think, on 8/24. It's from 1 to 2 p.m. and it is a 1-hour CE class being taught by the MLS, but it's here in this room. You can sign up and get CE credit for.
Fantastic. And More Club after food. Is there food?
Yeah, Molly's on her way back to
Okay.
pizza.
After food, More Club is having a mastermind in here. So stay to talk about what you've learned, what's going on in the market. But any more ahas before we finish? None? You learned nothing? Yes. 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 It's definitely not a conversation you're having in other markets. Yes, Andrew?
Comment about updating your clients on a weekly basis as to what's going on at their home, I think was very important.
Thank you. Brad?
I think one thing the master put on it, just really, even if it's role play, whatever, but how to price reductions, how to display them, how to overcome objections, how to get price reductions. Really, that's going to be the next year. Spending an active time, really being good at that, because it's going to save you a little bit of time, but it's going to save you a lot of time and frustration.
Yes. Angie?
And I think the data is really important, but also just understanding what their goals are. We recently sold a home out of state, and if that agent hadn't of price reduced, I would have been so mad. Like, I was so grateful that she could come with data and actually be real and be like, this is what we need to get under contract and this is how it's going to go. And that felt so much better than being wishy-washy about it. So I think sometimes we tell the story like, we don't want to go ask for that, but they really want to know how to get their house sold. That's why they hired you.
It's true. I have a divorce situation that I was like, we should probably do 3 to 5% price reduction. And he's like, I need to get sold, so 5%. Or if I was being cautious and be like, oh, only 3%, it might have been a different conversation. Peter?
Just that the reminder that if you have a conversation weekly with your seller, set that expectation, talk to them on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Thursday, because a 5-minute conversation with them coming from you to them, if they call you, it's too late. And then it's a 30-minute conversation.
Yep.
So on a Friday after a long work week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I appreciate you reminding us about the data and views and kind of those analytic. It seemed like you put the house up over the weekend and you were doing all you could do to just filter all the offers and just accept one. But now I think sellers are going to be looking for, okay, a week or two, what are the numbers? What are the views? And we've got to focus on that data.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm stealing
Yeah.
from somebody, but price to the dollar. I walked in kind of during that conversation, but I appreciated that.
Yeah, it matters. Good. True. More things to play with. Okay, well, thank you all for coming and we'll see you next week.